Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Cutting Room here in New York City. Blessing the band stage tonight and playing for many of his friends as well as fans, celebrating his 88th birthday, is the legendary Bucky Pizzarelli. As you know, for 7 decades, this man has been a pioneer and trailblazer, one for his unique technique on the jazz guitar, as well as playing with some of the most important trailblazers of the jazz idiom, ranging from Benny Goodman to Von Monroe, as well as the great Wes Montgomery, just to name a few. Tonight, many of his friends are going to be playing on the band stage with him tonight, as well as I sat down earlier and spoke with him, and we talked about his career as a jazz guitarist, as well as what he brought to the game, also what he wants the world to just remember him by as far as his music as well as his spirit. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of the legendary Bucky Pizzarelli live as part of his 88th birthday celebration here at the Cutting Room here in New York City. Bucky, I want to say happy 88th birthday.
Thank you very much.
Bucky, you know you have been really an innovator and a trailblazer for the 7-string guitar, and I just want to know, when was the very first time that the guitar entered your psyche?
Well, when I was 9 years old. It was, but I was studying with my uncles, and they both played with big bands, you know, Clyde McCoy, Buddy Rogers. In those days, they just played rhythm guitar, you know. They were always showing me some fancy chords that nobody in Patterson ever saw. So I got hooked right away. And when I was 17, I was on Christmas vacation from high school, and my last 2 weeks of high school, I went with Von Monroe's band, played in Binghamton, Scranton, Binghamton, and Rochester. Went back to high school the next day. But I when I graduated, I joined the band. And then I got drafted when I was turned 18 to go in the Army. But I got a good taste of the band. I said, that's what I want to do. When I got out of the Army, Vaughn hired me again. He gave me the job back because I was drafted out of the band. So it was nice.
You know, I understand that as a kid growing up, you fluctuated between the banjo and the guitar.
Well, I started with the banjo, but then they said, you better get with the guitar because the banjo's dying out. But they were excellent banjo players.
What was it about the guitar that you decided that this was going to be the instrument that you were going to play the rest of your life?
I just said to myself, that's it. When you get the taste of that big band, you don't want to do anything else. That's what happened to me. And I just stayed with the big band, and every night was a party for me because I was swinging. I loved it.
Okay, I'm Frank Vignola, and I first heard Bucky Pizzarelli on record when I was 6 years old. And that inspired me to do what I'm doing today, which is touring around the world playing great classic songs. So in getting to work with him, you know, it's just sheer joy. I worked with Les Paul for many years, and that was like the same thing, just working with your idols. You know, it's almost surreal for me.
What is it about Bucky's legacy that has been very influential to guitarists as well as musicians around the world?
Well, he was an innovator of swing guitar, you know, especially the rhythm style of swing guitar. I mean, I think Charlie Christian and Barney Kessel and Bucky Pizzarelli are kind of the ones responsible. And just the fact that he's still around in such good shape at the age of 88, playing 200 shows a year and practicing hours every day, it's just a real, true inspiration to me. not only as a guitarist, but as a person. I mean, he has 4 children, I have 4 children, so just knowing that a guitar player can do that is very, very inspirational to me.
You've been playing with Bucky for many, many years. When was the first time he entered your musical psyche?
Oh, geez. I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old, and I met Bucky when I was 16, and that's 46 years ago. So I've been with him that long, and you know, he's been kind of my inspiration and my motivation for all those years.
What is it about Bucky's guitar style that has set him apart from a lot of the great jazz innovators and guitar innovators also?
Oh, he's probably more true to the melody line than any guitar player out there, and he is just has a pure, honest sound. It's all guitar. There's no effects. There's no reverb. It's just pure guitar sound. And I think, you know, and he plays from his heart.
I think Bucky's one of the most generous people in the business. He loves to share the stage with artists, and he always puts them first. You know? So I mean, I think that's one of the best things about Bucky is that he's generous in his music. He loves to play for people. His generosity shows where he shares the stage.
Tell me about the 7-string guitar. This is an instrument that isn't played by too many guitarists, but you have
a lot of them are playing now.
Yeah. But back when you were starting to play,
nobody was playing it. You know, they all started later on. But little by little, I've come across 7-string players.
Who were some of the influential 7-string players that you?
Well, the first guy that started was George Van Epps. He played with Ray Noble's band, and he was unbelievable. He played beautiful solos without the amplifier, right near the microphone. That's what he did.
What is it about the 7-string guitar that differentiates as far as technique and style?
You have lower notes than you have. You're like a bass fiddle. Besides being a guitar player, you have the same notes the bass fiddle has. So that's it. When you're accompanying somebody, you have all the proper low notes.
I'm going to talk to you or ask you some questions about some of the great guitar innovators, and I want your take on some of the great guitar greats. The first one is Charlie Christian.
Oh, Charlie Christian. I heard him when I played in the club. The bartender let me use. He gave me 6 or 7 78s. You know what a 78 is, right? The kids don't know what a 78 is anymore. And they were all Charlie Christian records with Benny Goodman. I never heard anything like that in my life. And it was one, I said, that's what I want to do. But I little by little, and the big band, I got to play, you know, I tried to play like Charlie Christian.
Another guitar innovator I want to talk to you about is, and you also had the privilege of recording with him, is the legendary Wes Montgomery.
Oh, Wes Montgomery, yeah. I used to see him a lot in New York at Jim and Andy's. That was the hangout for all the musicians. And I got to play on California Dreamin' with him over at Rudy Van Gelder's in New Jersey, a great recording studio, maybe the best. And it was a big thrill for me to play with.
What was it about Wes's guitar style that just...
Let's play like Charlie Christian, only with his thumb. He used his thumb, that's all, no pick.
I remember the very first time I met you when I moved to New York. Les Paul was a dear friend of yours too.
He was a neighbor of mine too, up in New Jersey. But I got to play with. I played with him Carnegie Hall. I played with him Metropolitan Museum of Art, and where else did we do? Carnegie Hall. Yeah, Carnegie Hall. I played with him a few times when he played at the Iridium. He was great. He was one step ahead of everybody, you know.
Django Reinhardt.
Django Reinhardt, another one. I almost saw him when I was in the service, in Nancy, France. That was the name of the town. I was going through and we stopped just to sleep because we had a big trip to make. We had to went from Austria to Le Havre, and we had to put the signs up for our division to get to that boat. So we were the first ones to go home when the war ended in Europe. And I never got to meet Django, but I did play with Stefan Grappelli, his partner.
You know, some of your partnerships have been endless in the annals of great jazz music, and one of them is the great Zoot Sims. Tell me about the first time you met Zoot.
Well, I met Zoot so many times. You know, he used to come around. When I played with George Barnes, he and his wife would come over and see us. And when I played at a restaurant up on 74th Street, the Sorabai it was called, he lived nearby, and he sat in with me one night, and the boss said, "Look, whenever you're off, you play with Bucky here." So he was with me. We were together about 2 or 3 years, just playing in a club. And we did go. We went overseas together. Went to Japan, and one of the big thrills of my life playing with that guy.
Russ, when was the first time that you were exposed to Bucky Pizzarelli?
Well, there are a couple of records that I heard as a teenager. There was one that he did called Green Guitar Blues, and there was another one called, there's one that he did with the guitarist George Barnes. They did a duo recording. And I was so taken by the sound that he got out of the instrument, because sound is the first thing that you notice when you hear a person play or sing, or when you hear them talk. That's the first thing that captures your attention, and that's what got me about Bucky, the sound of his guitar, and then, you know, that swing. And we first met 20 years ago. He was playing at a place in New York. It's no longer there anymore. A place called Zeno's. He was doing a trio gig with John Bunch, the late John Bunch, and bassist Jay Linhart. That's when we first met. And he was very nice to me. For some reason, he knew who I was. I guess his son had told him about me, because I had met John over in Holland. So he'd heard some things that I'd done with Harry Connick Jr. So he was very nice to me and welcomed me with open arms. And he would invite me to come by and sit in with him, and called me for a couple of duo gigs. And we've been friends for a long time. I always call him my Italian grandfather.
You know, during the 50s and 60s, you were one of the in-demand session guitarists, and you recorded with some of the heavyweights. Tell me some of your most memorable sessions or some of the collaborations that you recorded on.
Benny King, I made those records with Benny King. I made all the records with Dion and the Belmonts, a lot of rock and roll records I was on. Itsy Bitsy Bikini, Ray Charles, George on My Mind. I'll tell you a funny story about that. I made the record with him, you know, George on My Mind. Then 25 years later, I'm doing a Dick Cavett show, and his conductor come over to me and says, hey, guitar player, lay out on this next number because it's a different kind of guitar. You know, it's acoustic rhythm guitar like Freddie Green, you know. I didn't tell him that I made the record.
One of the things I read that I found very interesting is that you said that people are not playing rhythm when it comes to guitar.
Well, they had no way to play rhythm. Everybody wants to play a solo, you know what I mean? When you hear all these records today, the kids are all playing electric guitar. You can't play them on rhythm on an electric guitar. You can try to do it, but that's not the right thing is the acoustic guitar, and you hit the thing and the strings are up high. You hear that all over the place, like Freddie Green. He's the champ.
You know, at your birthday celebration, there was 4 and 5 generations of great guitar players up there, and some of them, you know, you had the honor of teaching. What is it that you want the next generation of guitarists to understand about the craft of playing? Not just jazz guitar, but just guitar in general.
I think they have to know how to play rhythm guitar. They know how to play solo electric guitar. And they have to play, it's my opinion, classical guitar, like Segovia. If they know those 3 things, 3 different guitars, they'll be well-rounded all their lives.
Benny Goodman was a very, very important part of your life.
My champ.
Not only did you look up to him, but you had an honor playing with him up until he died.
That's right. Benny was the king of my. In fact, I knew about Benny Goodman when I was 5 years old. My uncle said these are the best bands in the world. You know, Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Benny Goodman. I knew about that. And when I got to play with Benny, there was no stopping me because I went all out to play for him.
What was it about Benny and just his bands that set him in the great annals like the Duke Ellingtons and the Count Basie?
When you looked at Benny on a stage during a one-night stand, they were playing for dancers. And Benny was sitting there with a, for lack of a better word, a dumb look on his face. Boom, 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 boom. Everybody thought he was a little nuts. He wasn't nuts. He was a genius. And he was thinking about the tempo of the next number that he had called up. Do you hear what I said? And how many band leaders think about that? Now, that's why his band was so good. It was the best dance band in the business.
What was it that you learned from him when you played with him throughout up until he died?
I liked what he liked that I did. And I played rhythm for him. He liked that. And he would say, bring that certain guitar. I love that. And that's it. That's what I did all my life. I played very little solos with him. I did play a couple duets with him on a record.
You know, me watching jazz and listening to you throughout the years, one of the things that I can honestly say that you continue to do that I think is kind of lacking in jazz right now, swing.
That's the name of the game.
Swing is not here anymore.
No, it's disappearing. It's all jumper, jumper, boom, 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 bass drum, and a loud bass, and one note on a rotten lyrics. That's what the kids are listening to now. It's terrible.
Do you think that because of the fact that you played rock, R&B, pop music, your genres go all over, even world music?
I've done all that. I did all the rock and roll dates. I did a lot of them in New York.
You think that because of that is the reason why you've been able to stay viable at 88?
Because I knew about what you didn't have to play. You know what I mean? And the reason they call me is to play rhythm guitar.
Bucky Pizzarelli, what's jazz music mean to you?
It's everything. My whole life. It's my whole life. I don't think of anything else but playing the guitar. I mean that. I mean, it's I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is pick up the guitar, just play it. I don't practice scales or none of that stuff. I play something that I played tonight. You know, a couple of chordal solos, you know, that I've worked out. It never ends. It never ends. And tonight we brought up Russell Malone, good friend of mine, and that's what makes the music so beautiful. He walks in with his guitar, get it out of the case and play with us. And the people loved it. You heard it.
That'll do it again for this very special edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at the Cutting Room here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the legendary Bucky Pizzarelli for his time, as well as the staff and management here at the Cutting Room for their hospitality. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column, as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.